Tell me what you see when you look at me. Do you see another brother lost in these streets looking for his soul?
Trying to find my soul.
Or do you see another brother searching for lost souls in these streets? A street soldier.
Street soldier.
Here to help you get that chip off your shoulder, warm your colder days and sober your drunken ways, and find a way to help you get over these hurdles placed in our path. And this is not meant to amuse you. This is for all those who have questions but are afraid to ask.
I won't be afraid. I won't be afraid. No. When times get hard, you lose your way. Open your mind and hear what I say.
This is a message for the hard and the soft. To those who tune in weekly and to those who keep an eye out for 8 p.m. on Sundays and turn their radios off. The truth hurts. The cloth has been pulled. We're walking around half dead. Use this show as your IV. Alive and Free is a new movement. We've achieved self-destruction. A street soldier promotes self-improvement.
Streets couldn't be no colder, so I gotta be a soldier. It shouldn't be this hard for me. Even when it seems so hopeless, I gotta keep my focus. I'm glad to be alive and free, yeah. Streets couldn't be no colder, so I gotta be a soldier. It shouldn't be this hard for me. Even when it seems so hopeless, I gotta keep my focus. I'm glad to be alive and free, yeah.
Boy, it's good to see you. Welcome to, once again, to Alive and Free, the Street Soldiers, the one and only. There is only one. Kemba Smith-Pradia. And you know, I got to say that. I'm used to Kemba Smith, and I said, your husband going like, dude, I've been married for a minute. You got to put my last name in there. So, God, it is wonderful to see you. Thank you, honey. I know it's East Coast time. It's late back there. But, you know, just thanks for joining us once again. We, you may not be, you might be happy to see, we're really happy to see you. I mean, really, just, you're looking good. Good. Oh, yeah. My God. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I'm very happy to see you all. It's just an interesting time.
It is such an interesting time.
Yeah. So I'm just glad that you all invited me. And yes, I'm glad you had the snippet to give a little bit of a preview, especially 11:30 my time. But I'm really looking forward to the show and looking forward to, I don't know if Malik is going to join the same time or not.
Well, no, he's going to be after you. We're gonna give each of you your own, because
I'm just looking forward to meet Malik. I have so make sure you tell him I said hello. And I
tried to tell him, girl.
Yeah, and it's good to see another comrade in this fight.
That's right.
Wow. Well, we'll figure something out. We'll make a little overlapping and have you meet him. Here's the book, everyone. Got to show the book, poster child. The Kemba Smith Story. Wow, it's a great book. People, you know, and let me just say, first of all, let's get this out of the way. How have you and the family been during this COVID year? Let's get the health piece out first, because, you know, let's do that.
Everybody's doing well. My parents, you know, I try to keep them out the street. But you know, they're gonna do what they want to do. They're gonna mask up and do what they need to do for themselves. They're doing well. You know, Armani is in Amsterdam living, so he's doing well. Who's my son, which you'll hear me speak about briefly tonight. And my husband's in the next room waiting for me to get off this call. But in Phoenix, she's 10, and everybody's doing well. Thank you for asking.
How old is she now?
10. 10 and in the 5th grade.
Wow.
Yeah. And we're gonna make that trip out to California, because that's all she keeps talking about is wanting to come out to California. So as soon as we get past this hurdle,
gotta get past it.
Yeah. And hello, Sora. It's good to see you over there in your red lipstick.
It's we use your story I mean, you know, one thing about what happened to a story like this is, I was talking to somebody the other night, and I was mentioning you were going to be on the show, and this was a group of professional people, right? And I said, well, my guest on Sunday is going to be Kemba Smith. I said, you know who Kemba Smith is, right? And they were like, and these weren't kids, right? And right. Somebody kind of remembered. And anytime I see that, because it was such a big story, particularly in the Black community, you know, then, that I never want anybody to forget stories like yours. Never. You don't want them to forget. And certainly your own personally, you haven't, you've made sure, and I'm going to probably ask them what, expense to you personally, that your story stays alive. But I know with us at Alive and Free, it's just part of our curriculum. It is absolutely part of our curriculum. Lady Sel can tell you, every year, March, we do, we have a list of risk factors, and we always do the show during March, because our risk factor that we're looking at that time is the negative view of women. And
it's Women's History Month.
Right, yeah.
March is Women's History Month.
Right.
And so we take a moment and we look at women we look at the names that girls are called. And the names that they're given are just unbelievable. I mean, and I'm talking, we could come up with easily 75 low down, dirty, nasty names,
right.
Maybe 15 nice names. And then they talk about women who are influential. And then we look at the list of names but they're not this. And then we take them on a journey. And that journey is a story. And it's your story. And the way we work that story, well, because you walk in the classroom right in the middle of one of those things.
And I was going to say, I wish you all lived close enough, because I would want to pop in and surprise every class that comes through.
When you popped in, that was, everybody jumped out there. Anyway, but go ahead, Dr. Marshall. Sorry, we just, this.
Let it all come out. I mean, but the story is so powerful. It's and then again, we got all these kids getting ready to go off to college. We got these young women ready to go off to college. We got these guys going out. I mean, y'all got to get this right now, so it's not it's very important to us. And we do it in such a way that, well, when we first started, you were still locked up, right? We first started doing the story, and I just thought today, realized 2020, you've been out almost 20 years, right?
Yeah, December 22nd will be 20 years. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And so one of the new things that's happened, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a movie production company called Moving Pictures Institute that I'm working with. And so hopefully this movie thing will eventually happen where it can be brought to the masses. So maybe more people can be aware of my story without me having to physically tell it myself, that it could be out there on for everyone to watch.
I know you've been working. Is this the? I know you're working at T.D. Jakes at one time. Is this the same thing, or does it move on to something else?
Yep, this is another company. Yep, it's another production company. So we'll see what happens. But I'm excited about it. If you were to Google it, you will see stuff online about it. But it's, people tell me it's a timeless story, and you're right. A college student goes off, gets caught up in a different environment, and low self-esteem, and wanting to fit in. And I'm not speaking in this capacity, but you all know the story as far as how God has restored my life and some, where last year I was offered this position on the Virginia Parole Board here in the state. And so just reading so many stories, I'm glad that God has used my story to help change young people's lives. But regardless, college student or not, when I first learned about street soldiers and your radio program was when I was in federal prison in Danbury, Connecticut. And for me, it's just so important what you're doing, and to get to these young people at a young age so that they can know what other options are out there, even when they're in an environment that aren't healthy. I remember when I came into your classroom and there was a young girl that I had a chance to meet, and basically just hearing her story and hearing her say no one in her household encouraged her. Her aunt, I remember it was her aunt, her mother, they told her she wasn't gonna be, you know, this is what our young people are dealing with. And for you to have this foundation, I think it's just so critical. So yeah, I'm out there, you know, continuing to share my story. It's in a different time. I'm not doing it the way that I used to, but I believe the story is still very relevant in getting young people to understand the importance of not succumbing to the system. And you want to, you know, right now, you know, I wanted to make sure I put on my friend, Free Michelle West. Sure, I believe she's currently now in FCI Danbury, but she was a first-time offender who I met her while I was incarcerated, but she served over 27 years in federal prison as a first-time offender, and she's still there. And for me, it's personal with her because, you know, I know she tried to get out through President Obama, but, you know, Michelle West, I'm sure she wishes she was out so she could, you know, help young people not go down the same path as well. But I wear her shirt tonight to remember her and to still be a voice for her, but also too, this cross chain that I have on. I can remember Michelle West was the first person that told me that I was going to walk out of federal prison because she heard my name on CNN when the prison officials hadn't told me that I was going to be released. And so for me, walking out of those prison doors was, you know, kind of like in that movie scene, 12 Years a Slave, where, you know, he's going off of the plantation, but my heart was sinking because I was just like, there's so many other women that deserve to come out of here along with me. And for it to be 20 years later in December, for me, I have a sense of survivor's guilt. So I want to, my dedication has been since coming out of prison to share my story, to prevent other young people from going down the same path, to prevent this school to prison pipeline, but then also to continue advocating for change within our drug policies in the United States.
Yeah, and for me, the story is so personal because, you know, meeting your family. First I see the story, right? I'm gonna do the story, right? And I don't know nothing. I know it's the story. I don't like the story.
They said hello, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Tell them, and then, you know, I forget how a letter went somewhere, so, you know, and then we started corresponding. And I remember the first time I met your dad, I went to speak at a conference in Atlanta. In fact, Atlanta, I remember because he was there, I was there, and Chuck D was there. I remember that, you know.
Yeah.
You know, and I met your dad in person because we had sort of, and, you know, and the other thing, your mother's name is the same name as my mother. You know, I never knew another Odessa, right? So all this stuff was so wonderful. And then seeing their commitment, you know, I always say your parents are like Moses saying to Pharaoh, let my daughter go, right? Yeah. Pharaoh's heart was, and their determination to pull out all the stops, and it's just a wonderful, I mean, you know, your parents, right? But to see that whole thing happen, I call it, and people have heard me say this, I always say I wasn't there when when Jesus changed the wine into water or the low or multiplied the loaves and fishes, but I have seen a miracle.
that was from water to wine.
Water to wine. That shows you how much. That shows you how deep my biblical scholar is. But it was a miracle that was man-made. That was wouldn't have happened on its own. And there were so many people involved with your freedom who believed that this was unjust and just went to do everything they can. Ultimately got to the president of the United States, Bill Clinton. And when we do the story, the one thing I've done when I do my trainings is I come to the book and I always read the letter that your father wrote to Bill Clinton. And I said, I don't know, maybe there was a political deal, I don't know. But I do know that he appealed to this man, not as president, but as a father. You know, you got a daughter named Telzy, I got a daughter named Kemba. And the way he wrote that letter was just, I mean, only a dad could write that letter.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say that one dad got to another dad and said, and unhardened Pharaoh Clinton's heart and said, let my daughter go. So it's just a wonderful, beautiful story of folks rallying behind you. And I know you've always realized that, you always have. And nobody deserved it more than you. And that's, I mean, they all deserve it, but you know, you were the one, the trailblazer, and I still say it's a miracle. Every time I see you, say, damn, I was part of that. You know, it's just the greatest story. It's the greatest story ever. So yeah, I just want to say that, and your dad and mom, just, yeah, wonderful.
They are, they are my heroes. And I know that everyone doesn't, you know, there are people that are behind bars that don't have that kind of support. And I do realize just how special they are, but I think that's even why it was important for me. Because to me, it doesn't matter what kind of background you're from. If you have one parent, two parent raised in the foster system, it's that we need this country to value life. And I think that's something that's still so very shocking to me, just how many of us are behind bars, you know, serving life sentences. And I couldn't believe that when I was sentenced as a 23-year-old to 24 and a half years in prison as a first-time nonviolent drug offender. And so even today, you know, 49 years old, you know, when
you about to crack the big one.
So, and when I see, you know, that BET video clip that I play all the time, you know, I look back and I realize just how much of a miracle it was. And, you know, during a time when there was no social media. And, you know, I kind of look at Alice Johnson, who had her sentence commuted by President Trump, and Kim Kardashian brought her case to the forefront. And, you know, I've been, you know, watching the DNC and the RNC, and, you know, Alice Johnson spoke there, and, you know, the next day she got, you know, a pardon. And, you know, I advocated for Alice. I love Alice Johnson.
Right.
And so, you know, people, you know, want to pick at people. But when I think about my freedom and who released me, when I came out, I was so happy and, you know, grateful to President Clinton. But it took me some time to connect the dots and everything. And the fact that, you know, President Clinton signed this crime bill that caused me to be part of the prison boom, you know? So, I mean, I'm not going to say that Clinton is equivalent to Trump, but, you know, and I don't want to say politically at all. But at the same time, it's just like, you know, Trump granted Alice her freedom, you know, and Obama, I believe, denied Alice Johnson her freedom. So, you know, she's obviously going to be very indebted and grateful to him. But my only thing is that we need more people getting out of prison and more clemencies. And so I know everyone touts the First Step Act and federal legislation that was enacted. And yes, there have been some people that were brought home. But before President Obama went out of office, he freed 1,700 people. I know he probably wishes he did a whole lot more after he saw, you know, what came after him. But could more have been done? I believe so. But at this particular point, you know, I do feel for our brothers and sisters that are behind bars, and I know they don't have access to this tonight. That is one of the things that I miss about your radio show, because I could do a shout out to them.
Well,
but
actually, Kimba, the show it's taped, it's passed on to KMEL. It will get out through their network, so please do that because I know they will have access to it, and it's on the website too. Give them a shout out.
well, shout out to my brothers and sisters who are still behind the bars, and just know that there is a movement of formerly incarcerated people, and you'll hear brother next. And we are out here building in our communities. We're having seats at the tables and making decisions. And so, just keep your mind strong and right, and plan out your path for once you're released, and make sure you connect to as many resources as you possibly can, and just keep hope.
Because
We've actually had several
Say that
shows in the
again?
past. We've actually had several shows in the past. What? I hear an echo. Why do I hear an echo? Okay. Several shows in the past month on formerly incarcerated individuals. One was one of my favorite shows I call Getting Out and Staying Out. And, and I actually asked each of them who had been previously incarcerated, what's their secret? Because there's a lot of people who get out and can't stay out. And it was a great show, but they talked about their journey, but they also actually laid out, points, about this is what you got to do to get out and stay out. And it's just wonderful. And a lot of them are working in organizations to help the formerly incarcerated get out and never go back. We also had a show last week and a big issue is giving formerly incarcerated the right to vote.
Yeah.
That's been a huge, with Dorsey Nunn, all of us, and Nunn is real close to us also. And he's been working hard. He was in Florida. And that is like astounding to me that right is taken away, and they just don't want to give it back. Hey, they just don't want to give it back. And even when, I know in Florida, the governor signed a bill that, formerly incarcerated people could vote, and then they came up with the old bugaboo, you got to pay your fines, right?
Right.
You got to pay your fines. They keep
right.
putting
Or
these
if you have a certain charge, it doesn't apply to you. Yeah.
Right. This and voter suppression is alive and real. We know that. It's going on. There is a bill out here in California giving Proposition 17 right now, and it's to give formerly incarcerated on parole the right to vote. So this effort, and I was going to ask you, and let me just say one other thing. This book, Michelle Alexander's book, which is just a wonderful book, The New Jim Crow. There are still people that don't know the traps that were set for us. And I'm saying us, because when you get 100-to-1 crack cocaine sentencing, the pot of cocaine,
right.
when you get mandatory minimums, that didn't apply to everybody. That was those traps were deliberately set. And in the book, she goes back to president is talking about who they wanted to get, and specifically. So this is a long hill, to climb. And for you, I always think, you could have just gone and lived your own life, right? I mean, I did my time, I do my thing, but you've been front and center with this, and you get a lot of love and a lot of admiration with that, but it must be nice when you say, and now you gotta have a movie.
But you're right. But you know what? It's bigger than me. It's bigger than me, Dr. Marshall. That's what I've had to, own. And a lot of us that are in this movement, we realize that it's bigger than us, and we're going to keep marching like the great ones. We got to keep pushing forward with change. So, and I mean, you a mentor of mine, and grateful that you have this foundation of an organization, because when I came out, I wanted to hit the ground running, and I was worried about money and going back to college, and who was I able to call? And so, I'm grateful for
you would call your other dad.
Exactly.
And we just hit our 250th college graduate this year. It's an amazing number. I don't think about the work until I get these milestones. And when we hit 250 this year, I was like, oh man, I remember the first one. And I always say, I opened my big mouth and told these young people, you know, you don't get caught up, you know, you stick with the program. If you in it, get out. And if you ain't in it, don't get in. You pick the college, now find the money. I must have been crazy. I had no money, you know. But this is where they say God, and as they're saying God takes care of babies and fools. Well, I wasn't a baby, but God, and that's why I say God is truly good all the time. And it was a no-brainer, you know, when you wanted that. So what do you want to do? You said, all right, so let's get that. And then your son, to be able to do that again for Armani, the one in the video who was little, and then to come to his graduation was just, it don't get no better than that.
Yeah.
It doesn't get better than that.
Yes, indeed. And so hopefully we'll be telling you about another graduation soon. So with him. And
10 now, before she was like
I'm talking about Armani with graduate school.
Oh, graduate. Okay. Yeah,
yes. Oh no, I'm not ready for Phoenix graduating high school. No, she got a while. But Dr. Marshall, one thing I wanted to ask you, have you been to Montgomery to the EJI Institute, the Legacy Museum?
I have not, and I have not had a chance to get him on the air. I would love to get him on the air. We tried to get Brian one time before, but he's like, you know, like I don't know what.
Dr.
But
Marshall,
no, I haven't.
Dr. Marshall, if there's any way for you to go and maybe take a group of students, I'm telling you,
okay,
that was an experience that changed. I mean, I know you already have that knowledge, but that experience shook me and it impacted my life. So I just strongly, the museum and what do they call it? The memorial is going to blow your mind. So I strongly encourage everybody, Black, white. When I went there was more white people in the museum because you need to get this history too.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But what you were talking about with regard to Michelle Alexander's book and incarceration and mass incarceration in our country, that museum breaks it down.
Wow. Okay. Well, we're going to need all of this to move forward because the challenges are, you know, somebody asked me, I've been talking to him, say, is this like, and this is just my opinion, is this like, if what's going on in the country now with regard to race and, you know, and all of that, is it like back in the 60s? Because they know I'm old, right? Back in the 60s. And I say, no, it ain't like that. I say, this is like back in Reconstruction. I mean,
right.
To me, this is back then because this is challenging stuff that was passed before. And I said the real issue for me when this particular person got in office was what they would try and roll back. And it's been a serious assault. And to me, it's just like what happened after Reconstruction. And I don't know that everybody understands the seriousness of what's going on here with regard to progress that we made and continues that progress that we're trying to make. So the backlash has just been incredible to me. And I'm hoping we can get people, you know, on these things and stay on these things. And that's why this work and your work is of continuing importance because we could turn around and it'll be all gone. When that MAGA again, they ain't talking about, I know what they're talking about, right?
Right. Yeah. One of the things that through this just 2020, I mean, we've been losing some great ones, like,
right.
And I just wonder what it was like, you know, to lose Martin, to lose Malcolm, to lose Medgar Evers. Like, I just feel like the weight between COVID, racial justice, you know, the police.
Right.
It's just a heavy weight. And I just wonder, like, back then, were they feeling that same kind of pressure, weight? But it's a lot.
Me and your dad can tell you, and Lady Estelle can tell you, it was surreal. I mean, and they were getting assassinated. I mean, just boom, shot. You know, Malcolm in 65, Malcolm in 68. I can't remember Megger, one of those years, you know.
Right.
You know, the destruction of the Panthers, you know, just, you know, the whole bit.
Even before then,
yeah,
in the Black community where I grew up in the Midwest, when the President Kennedy assassinated.
63, yeah.
I mean, the Black community was like, oh my God, this is the closest we've gotten to somebody who has a little bit, that's looking at us just a little bit. I mean, and I was just a kid, and I thought, I mean, my family was devastated.
Right.
Kennedy. And then they got Dr. King. So yes, I mean, yes, it was the cloud. See, here in San Francisco, the Bay Area, last week we had orange skies because of the smoke.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
So we got up in the morning.
I'm sorry.
Early in the morning, and couldn't understand, why is it still dark out? Because it's 10 o'clock. And you couldn't see the blue sky because of the smoke and the orange. And so that was a physical manifestation of what's going on. Back in the 60s, it was just like that, even with the blue sky, if you can imagine.
I can't.
Yeah, the heaviness.
You know, but you know, Kemba, what it spurred us to do, and this is what I'm hoping it spurred me personally, because I mean, I was a college student, you know, I led to the founding of the BSU at my school. It just made like, well, I ain't going out like that. I mean, it really did that.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that young people, and I think that is, because you see the protests and so on and so forth, you know, take up that same mantle. And sometimes I wonder, just because this of a lot of things, you know, if they're ready for this challenge, because sometimes I feel, I mean, I knew it was going to be a marathon, and you know, I knew this was going to be a marathon thing, and it was always going to be a pushback as we move forward, because that's the way the system works. You know, non-white life is not as valuable, particularly Black life isn't as valuable as white life. It's been that way from day one. So as we tried to move up the mountain, swim, they were going to keep pushing back. So I've always been ready. My concern and hope is that young people are ready to take up the fight, and certainly, clearly, you are. You're still young to me.
I'll take it.
But so that's what I think is at stake here. And when I hear people say, I'm not voting, this is all, no, man, you know, you can't go out like that.
Right. No, you cannot.
Cannot go out like that. Because your ancestors, and for me, it's always been just not a personal thing, but an ancestor thing. Think about my grandmother, my great-grandmother. And when you learn all of those names, that's what's so good about reading history. You learn all of those names that came before me. You know, not the famous name, but the little names, you know.
Right.
The stories I have of just my own father trying to integrate stuff with my grandfather. So, yeah, we got to be ready.
Well, one of the things, and, you know, because I'm going to be making my little exit because I know y'all got another person, but one of the things I'm going to insert my husband, because we were talking a little while ago, and because I want to try to do as much as I can. Like, I know the deadline for registration in Virginia is October the 13th, and you know, organizations are doing whatever they can to try to get, you know, people to understand the importance. And my husband was frustrated because he was just like, why are we not enthused? Like, why do we have to push our people to want to register or be involved? And I mean, I understand some of the dynamics as far as why people may not be interested, but he was saying you would think because we weren't as a people allowed to vote for so long, that people would go running to try, especially in light of where we are today. If it's any time that you need to exercise your right, daggone it, it is definitely this 2020 election. And so, and I know you all know about it, this video with this young man, he's rapping. I feel like everybody in our communities need to see this video. Have you seen the video with a brother who's rapping and talking about the 3 branches of government? If
Gotta look for it.
You gotta, yes, I strongly
Yeah.
encourage because he makes some very good points that should be very poignant to our community.
Well, let me tell you who does want to vote. Those formerly incarcerated that we had on, they're like, oh hell. They were saying that while they were in prison, they would study all of these things that were going on. And they would say, man, if I just had a right to vote, and now they're on the cusp of doing that or doing it, they might be the first one. They might do a mail-in ballots.
Well, for
they
me,
vote.
well, for me, what irritated me the most, because I was released in 2000, I wasn't able to vote for the first time until, wait, guess what? I found my voter registration card that I got a little while ago. This was when I lived in Indiana, and it's dated 2000, I think 2009 was the first time that I was able to participate in a local election in Indiana. And so, no, sorry, 2011. So because of voter suppression laws in the US, I couldn't vote until I wasn't eligible to even apply to get my voting rights restored until after 10 years. And so for me, I was out there trying to get out the vote, get people to understand the importance of vote, even though I couldn't vote, because for me, I felt like I was not even human.
Right.
Like they were putting me in a category of people that weren't competent or a child. That got to me so much. And as a formerly incarcerated person, if you can't vote, you just block. I know I numbed myself to that reality and to that emotion, and still was pushing through to do what I could do to encourage other people to vote. But when I got that piece of paper that my voting rights were restored, my husband talked about me so bad because they had a press conference or something in Richmond, and I was actually boo-hoo crying, not a pretty cry.
I hear you.
And I felt like I was whole.
Yeah.
Even though I had been out doing great things, but I wanted to participate. I wanted to be involved in politically what's going on in my community. And why would anybody want to take that human, basic, fundamental right away from us when we're trying? Y'all want us to come out and do well and succeed, but you still want us to feel less than. But that's me on my soapbox.
No. And you know, the governor in Georgia wants to take away the voting rights of the protesters.
Oh, wow.
This voter suppression thing that's why I'm saying it's Reconstruction. It ain't the 60s. Yeah. We just got to be free. They trying to do Plessy versus Ferguson again, separate versus. I mean, this is where we are now. It's like we climbed all the way up, and they just trying to just push us all the way back. And I really don't think, I got to shout out the WNBA and the NBA and who are like unprecedented. I mean, I've never seen anything like that. And you know, there was something like that with a few athletes in the 60s, but for a whole league, the whole league. I mean, I like watching NBA anyway, but that's the only place I'm gonna get racial justice 24/7. When the shot goes up, I'm gonna see, you know, Breonna Taylor's name in the background.
Yeah.
It's on. That's how he said. He said it's on, and we got what?
No time for getting tired now. We gotta keep.
No. We can celebrate on the 5th. Honey, this has been just wonderful. Jesus, it's just, oh man, what can I say? This is just I don't know. I'm gonna still talk because I can't talk.
Well, you know,
I'm lost. I'm at a loss for words.
You've been doing really well. Sounds like to me. I like to hear from Kemba, because I know that your time is up, and I think, and you've said a lot, but I think that I would be remiss not to ask if you would share, for those who are watching, a message to the young women to the young people, and you already gave a message to our people, the right to vote. It is, that's something that we have lived and died for. So, but if there is a message that you would like to share, I need you just to take a moment and just, what would you want our young women to know, to remember, our young men to know and remember, for our people to know and remember?
I want our young women just to know their worth, to know their power. And there are a lot of things that's going through my mind right now, but know who you're in relationships with.
Mm-hmm.
Value you as a woman. And I believe, Dr. Marshall, you told me this. No one will lead you to fear or danger. And
Love will never lead you to danger. Yeah.
yes. So, and I share this because last night my husband and I were in DC. I got wakened up in the middle of the night because we've got this pandemic and families are going through it.
Mm-hmm.
And woken up in the middle of the night at 4 a.m. and I was traumatized because I heard a girl yelling, being beaten.
Mm.
And so for me, as someone that's in an abusive relationship, and then I'm not speaking in this capacity, but there's all kind of things that I read now with being on this parole board. And so for me, I need women and girls to understand their worth and understand that you do not have to tolerate being in relationships where you're being mistreated and abused. And if it means that you have to go to a homeless shelter in order to seek safety, understand that that's more important than you having your kids around, maybe seeing you being in compromising positions, or even them being harmed by being with this abusive person. So I just need our young women and ladies just to understand your value and worth. Don't have yourself in those situations, but then also too, just for us to understand our power. And we birth nations. And so, for me, it's always us women that's been in the backdrops, and now we're taking these leadership roles, but maybe it's going to take our softness and humanity to bring some calmness in this major storm that we're in. But we need to understand and value our voice. Now is not a time for us to be meek and submissive and sit back and just say nothing. That when we see something's wrong, that you need to make sure that you speak on it and you take action. And that's probably me wrapping things up in various amounts of issues, but I just feel like we as women, we have a whole lot of work to do. And Lady Estelle, we have, men that, if it wasn't for these great men, behind every great man is a great woman. And so we have to continue to, even sometimes behind the scenes, do what we can to push our state, to push our federal agencies. But we need to do whatever we can now and use our human senses, use our empathy, compassion, in order to move things forward in this country. Because right now we can't even get people to wear masks to care about other people.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know. We just have a lot of work to do, and it's really disturbing. And last note, like I shared with you all that my son's in Amsterdam, finishing graduate school. And when this pandemic hit, well, then he was in Paris. But when this pandemic hit, in my mind as a mom, like, son, you need to pack it up,
Right.
you're not gonna be able to stay over there. You need to come home. The whole world is in crisis. And he says to me, Mom, I understand. And he was like, I just want you to, calm down for a second. And he was just like, Mom, we could end up being better off over here than in the United States. And when he said that, I sat down because I was in a hotel room speaking somewhere in Iowa or something. And it really smacked me in my face.
Right.
Because I've seen this stuff happen in real time. We've all seen this happen in real time. And every night we look at the TV and it's just getting worse. So I'm just saying, we as women, we need to smack some sense into the people that are running these agencies, these men. Get our nation together, and we can do it. Girl power, woman power.
Well, thank you, honey.
Thank you.
Boy, wow. What can I say? Maybe we should get you to run for office. No. Keep you
Well, Dr. Marshall, Reginald Stewart, who wrote the Emerge article, we're still, close and tight. And people have said that they thought that I should run for political office. And he was just like, no, I don't think you should. It'll ruin you. It'll ruin you.
Yeah, wait, well, talk to me and your husband and your dad before you think about doing that.
Okay.
Listen, we got, I want to say the closing, then I do want you to stay on just to meet Malik, okay? Just to say hi, and then we'll let you go. But I just got to say, just thank you for everything. Every time I see you, I see the miracle. I mean, it's just beautiful. Well, you represent everything that, what do we call it? We call it alive and free. And I see you and you are alive and free. And I'm like, damn, Kemba is alive and free. And as those years go on and you hit these numbers, I'm going to say, God is good. That's all. That's all.
And the other thing, if I can add, she continues to live out the tenet of alive and free. The more you know, the more you owe.
Absolutely.
And you just continue to give back, and you stand up and you fight and you use your voice. So everything that you said we need to do is what you are doing, have done, and continue to do. So bless you in your work and on your journey.
Thank you.
So we're going to take a break. You can get a glass of water. We're going to put you dark for 1 minute and tell your husband, oh, you got it. Okay, so we're going to bring Malik in, play a little piece of him, let you meet him, and you guys can, say, hi, Malik, and you can go and we'll do him. And yeah, okay. And you got a little bit for us as Malik comes in. Don't go nowhere. Okay.
I won't.
Love you.
Love you too.
I do. So we're gonna go ahead and talk really quick about why the census is important. So I wanted to share a video from the Black Census, and we can learn about that first. So give me a second to get to my screen as we. Oh, I had it up, but you know how it goes.
Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
So one of the things that shocked me too with being in federal prison was they had us fill out the census they locked the whole prison down and had us fill out the census. And one of the things with that is that there's federal money that goes to where all these prisons are across the country, where that money should be going into communities where people live. So it's interesting that you're about to play this. So I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, good. So give me just a quick second to get this up. We're still all learning how to do some Zooming. So let's go ahead and take a peek. Here we go.
Thought this was just about buses. You thought this was just about schools and roads. You thought this was just about information public resources. You thought it was just about hospitals and new infrastructure. It's about the people. It's about the one thing we can't replace or substitute: the souls of the family. Now make our black count.
All right, so
That is a reminder to everyone to the census is, you have to register the census by the end of the month, September 30th. It's coming up fast, and you want to, that's just as important. Well, voting is important, being registered for the census is important, being counted, all that's important. So that's a reminder. We'll probably show it again next week too, right before the date that the census ends. And do we have a little clip of Malik, or if not, we'll go straight to him?
I do have a little clip of Malik. He has been on Street Soldiers Radio. Let me see if I have that up and ready for you. Should be right here. Let's see which one is it? Oh, okay, there we go. Look, there's Malik right there. Here, I lost my spot, so let me bring it right back here. There we go.
Here's where we're going to begin. First, I want to, and this may surprise some people, this book, I wrote a book, right? First of all, again, to write a book is the most wonderful thing in the world, other than making a movie. And personally, I would put this in front of it, writing a book, having a book, because the book influenced my life so much, right? It's just a fabulous thing. However, the difference between Malik and I is I had a co-writer. He wrote this himself. He published it himself. So before we even get into the content of the book, tell me, what was it like writing, and where did you get the idea? Let's start with that, and the whole public, because people ask me all the time, Dr. Marshall, man, you wrote a book, man, how I get it published? I said, well, man, I didn't do it myself. I had somebody find me and put all the mechanisms in place for me, but you wrote it yourself. How?
With you, it was, once I had conceived the idea to write the book, I just came up with a very meticulous and methodical plan. I started to write
meticulous and methodical.
I started to write an actual business plan on everything that needed to be done. I did a extensive amount of research on the self-publishing industry. I went, like they say, I reverse engineered it. First, I studied the self-publishing industry itself, and then I started to study the different facets of actually writing a book.
Wow.
And then from that point on, I just, I started to write. I get up every day. I get up about 4:30, and between 4:30 and 5, and a little bit after 5 o'clock in the morning every day when it's quiet outside, when it's peaceful and serene, I write.
How long did it take you? This book is what, 200, almost 300 pages, 260 some pages. How long did it take you to write it?
To write the book took me a little over a year.
That's not long at all.
That's not.
Really? Was it something that flowed out of you? Did you get, what do you call it, writers, what do you call it?
Block?
Yeah, at some point. The way it reads it like it's.
No, it definitely was, it wasn't easy. Although I didn't have any writer's block. When I get up in the morning, my mind is probably at its most crisp point. So the words, they kind of flow pretty smoothly. So I didn't really have a lot of writer's block. I'll write.
Okay.
That's a quick introduction to the gentleman who is now joining us, Mr. Malik Wade. How you doing, Malik? The author of Pressure from FBI Fugitive to Freedom. Malik, great to have you again, brother. And before we do this, Kemba waited to meet you, so say hi to Kemba. I don't know how long.
How you doing, sis? I'm definitely one of your fans.
Thank you. And I had a chance to look you up, and just congratulations on your book, all the success, and your program for youth, and your website looks dynamic. I might have to take a little pointers from you and update mine. But you know, it's a large community of us doing great things, and everybody has their own lane. But you definitely are doing it. So really proud of all the work that you're doing.
I appreciate you, sister. I appreciate you. But I'm definitely a big fan of yours. A long time ago, even before I went away, I was already familiar with the story and I had already read about it. So, you know, keep pushing, sister. Keep pushing.
Will do. You too. Much love.
One love.
Okay.
Okay.
Y'all have a good night. Love you.
Bye, honey.
Take care.
Bye. Okay. Stay
Tell
safe.
my dad and Armani and your husband and everybody else.
And your baby.
Yes, I will.
Okay, baby.
Thank you, Dr. Marshall.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Mr. Malik Wade, glad to have you on, brother. Thank you. Thank you for waiting through the first interview. And I frame this: two authors, two great stories, two great friends of Alive and Free. And we just had our first friend, Kemba, and now we've got our second, Malik Wade. And that was a great clip that Ann found, because I meant that about the book. You writing your own book, and you told me you're working on it. You're gonna do a second one. But just like Kemba's story, which we use at Alive and Free with our young people, we use your book. And in fact, you have a copy of it. I went to find a copy of the book, and I couldn't.
I had the book.
There it is. Hold it up. Let everybody see.
But Doc, I need to make sure you get this lesson plan, though, the curriculum that goes with the book. It is, you know, it's very detailed. It shows you how to write a life plan, how to write your own personal mission statement, how to write a vision statement for your life. The book, the workbook is very comprehensive and very in depth, and it can help. You know, it can help folks. It can help a lot of like kids that are in high school and probably up to first year college students.
Mr. Stella, why don't you tell Malik how we use the book and in what capacity we use pressure?
We have a college prep class, and I know that you're familiar with that, Mr. Wade, because you've come to Omega. And so in the college prep class, they are required to read 4 chapters. I just pull a piece out, and then I have them respond to some questions, and then they have to write about it. I'm gonna see, hold on a second, if I can bring it up. How about that? Can you see that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right, nothing like Zoom. So this is just an example of the essay assignments and activities, and we start out with Too Cool for School. And as we get into it, we read James Baldwin, but here we get to Pressure by Malik Wade.
Beautiful.
And so first, they have to write, because see, for the college prep, you can't get through college unless you're able to write. You're able to read, write, process it, comprehend it, think about it, pull it together. And these are some of the things that they need to do. First, write a paragraph explaining what you think, feel, or believe about what happens when one is locked up. But I don't limit locked up to being in jail, prison, or youth facility. I talk about being locked up in fear and insecurities, toxic situations or relationships. And then they have to identify what that situation is, be clear. Then after they go through the chapters, you see, you will write about the following. What did he learn? And the reasons you think he learned them. Was it beneficial? In what way? And finally, have you ever lost your way? Listen, I want you to know, better stop sharing. I want you to know that our young people, after they finish with your chapters, and it's 15 through 18.
15 through 18. Okay.
They have a whole new perspective on the kinds of things they're doing and what they need to do differently.
Well, I'm glad I can touch the young folks. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I wrote the book. I did have sort of a specific demographic in mind, but I knew that the book had some some different elements that would appeal to, you know, other folks outside of our community.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's very insightful, informative. You know, it could, because you break down how you think, what you saw, what you did, and it's just a perfect guideline and framework for, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing your curriculum, because you, even in the book, the way it's so it's very well laid out. You can
Thank you.
You know, Malik, when I
appreciate
book,
you.
and I'm gonna say the title one more time for folks: Pressure from FBI Fugitive to Freedom. It's funny because your journey is in the era that we were doing the club. I mean, pretty much the club was going on. And, you know, my first thought was, damn, I wish I could have got him to Omega, right? You know, because then when I read, you know, he was in Sunnydale, I was like, damn, you know, we got kids from Sunnydale. And just reading it, your story, and I call it getting caught up, you know, fast life, you know, fast, you know, the whole nine. You just hurtle through the book. The book is not only well written, but it's something you can't put down. I could not put that book down. And your journey, the stops, the movements you did. And when you got to the part where you was in Canada, I said, damn. I said, and I'm always, whenever, I mean, my whole thing with young people that I've worked with, because I have worked with a lot of brothers who got caught up in that, you know, in that game, is the turning point. And if you could just begin by talking about, you know, your turning point, when you came to realize, oh man, this ain't for me, and just to talk a little bit about that for the folks.
Well, the turning point was as soon as they put the handcuffs on. Mm-hmm. You know, the very moment I got handcuffed, because at the time I was facing a life sentence, and that's something that's a very, very serious thing. I think a lot of young folks don't really understand the serious magnitude of potentially spending the rest of your natural life in prison. Mm-hmm. And the reason that I say that I was facing a life sentence, because as you know, I was a fugitive for 7 years. And during that time, my best friend at the time, he was arrested and he was sentenced to 27 years in federal prison, you know, where he had to serve 87% of that. And my charges were worse than his charges. Mm. So, you know, I was in contact with my lawyers throughout the entire 7 years. And they told me, if your friend received 27 years and the lowest man on the totem pole received 22, the minimum that you can receive is 30 years. Mm. So I knew, you know, I felt like when I was arrested, I knew I had to change. I was, you know, anticipating potentially spending the rest of my life in prison. But even if I would have received a life sentence, I still knew that I had to completely shift my paradigm, whether I was going to get out of prison or not.
That moving from that thought process, because I think a lot of folks know what it was going in, you know, the fast money, the this, and you could talk about what you were attracted to, but how long did that take? Was it gradual? Was it just talk about what that was for you?
It definitely was a gradual process, because I started selling crack cocaine as young, basically when I was 15 years old. And, you know, obviously I wasn't very good at it, because I got busted very swiftly. I got busted when I was 16 years old. They sent me off to juvenile hall, and then they sent me from juvenile hall to a boys ranch. And then I wound up getting out the following year. And then after I got out, I did think that I was a little smarter and a little more sophisticated. So there was a gradual process in terms of me starting to elevate with the amounts of drugs that I was purchasing and selling. So by the time that I had graduated from high school, which was in 1989, a long time ago, 1990, that's when I felt that I was sophisticated enough to started to sell drugs in different states. So I left San Francisco and I started to sell drugs in Washington, D.C. And then I left Washington, D.C. and I started to sell drugs in New York. And then I left New York after about a year. Then I ended up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is ultimately where my charges took place. But even when I was in Pittsburgh, there was a gradual process. So now I'm like 19, 20 years old. And then I started going to a couple of other states. But so when I was 21 years old, that's when I actually got indicted. So I didn't really have a long run, as they say. I didn't have a long run selling drugs at what would be considered, I guess some people would consider it a high level. Maybe when I look back in retrospect, maybe I was more, maybe I was a little more sophisticated than what I understood, but to me, it didn't seem, I didn't really understand the magnitude and the seriousness of what I was doing until we actually got indicted. So I was 21 years old when they indicted me, and I remained, a fugitive until I was 29. But it was a slow metamorphosis that took place basically between the age of 15 and 21.
And coming out of that thought process, when you get behind bars and like it hits you, like because there's a lot of guys who go in there that don't figure it out, that don't come to the realization, that get out and aren't able to stay out. But what was it for you? Did something pop or click, or was it a gradual thing? What was it?
Well, it definitely, when I went to prison, I pled guilty to 15 years in federal prison. So I knew, just doing the numbers, that I knew if everything went right with all the good time that they can give you, which is not very much in federal prison, I knew I would have to do close to 13 years. So I started to immediately develop a plan, like a very deliberate and intentional plan on how many books I would read, how many chapters I would read every day, what courses I would take in prison, what classes that I would take, what educational courses I would take. And it's a trip because people like to talk about the so-called success that I have since I've been out of prison. But that was, it certainly was not by happenstance. It came as a result of me being very deliberate and intentional. I remember like it was yesterday. When I got to prison, the first year I was in prison, I wrote everything that I wanted to do once I got out of prison. And like I said, I knew I had to do, at worst, close to 13 years. And I started to write things like, I wanted to get into a special program at Stanford. When I got out of prison, I got into a special program at Stanford. I had no idea. I had never been on the campus of Stanford before, prior to going to prison. But when I got out of prison, which I was able to get into a special program at Stanford, I said that I wanted to speak at different universities. When I got out of prison, I started to speak at different universities like Cal, Berkeley, etc. I said that I wanted to take some kids to Africa. When I got out of prison, I eventually, with Operation Genesis, I eventually took 14 kids to Africa for 10 days. But these were all things that I wrote down my first year in prison. Had never experienced any of those things. And the reason that I mention this is because it speaks to the power of intention and being very deliberate about your goals and being able to visualize things. Because most people go to prison, not all, but most people go to prison, and they have 14 to 15 years. A lot of them may do things to distract themselves. They may engage in things. They don't want to think about how much time they have. But I knew, I had a lot of time to serve, but I knew that over that long period of time that I had, I knew that I would be able to make some significant strides in terms of my intellectual development that will put me in position to do all of the things that I've been able to do since I've been out of prison.
Well, do you remember some of the books that you read while you were locked up?
This is the main book that I always refer to right here.
That's the book.
Whoever listening,
That's my book.
whoever watching, make sure that they need to read this tonight or tomorrow. So this book obviously had the most profound impact on my life. And the second book that had
Let me just tell people can see it. It's the autobiography of Malcolm X. Okay?
Yes.
Number one book in my life too.
Autobiography of Malcolm X. And the second book was, it's called the Metu Neter.
Oh,
And it is
wow.
basically the African spiritual system. And this is volume 3 that I have in my hand, but there's a volume 1, 2, 3, and the author is a guy named Raoun Nefer Amin. And this book had next to the autobiography of Malcolm X, it had the most profound impact in my life. And it's basically the spiritual system in Egypt. Very, very spiritual book, very touches on a lot of science and how science ties in to spirituality. Excellent book. Excellent book.
Oh God, man, that's a lot of power, information, knowledge, higher. When I say higher learning, I don't mean a movie. I mean higher spiritual learning and you're not going to get that anywhere at all. I mean, you have to discover that. You're not going to get that in school. How'd you find out about the books? I mean, did somebody hit you to them, or did you get recommendations?
Absolutely, yes. There was a guy. When you get to prison, there's a lot of older guys in there. They've been in prison already 15, 20 years, 25 years, and they've done a lot of reading. And if they see that you are an individual that's serious, sometimes they'll sit back and watch you. And if they see you every day in the same area reading and studying, they'll offer you a book. So at that point, a guy who wound up becoming a mentor of mine, he started to introduce me to different books. He introduced me to John Henry Clark and Dr. Ben Yakinen and Leonard Jeffries and Asani Shakur and Woodson and different philosophers. I mean, I read a lot of European philosophy as well. Naturally, as a Black man, I'm going to read books that were written by us, for us. However, I always felt that it was very important for me to study European philosophy because the European paradigm is typically the prevailing paradigm throughout the world. So I wanted to study, I studied the Socrates and the Platos and the Nietzsches and the Kants and the Sartres, but my primary focus was John Henry Clark, Anthony Browder, Ashwa Kwesi, Dr. Ben Yakinen, and the Egyptian mystery system. And that's what gave me my footings and gave me my, that's what girded me and was able to allow me to study all of the other things.
I hope people are listening and writing some of these names down, writing these books down, because this is stuff they'd be like, oh man, I can't, but it's all in the books. It's all in the information is there. You just got to make yourself aware, and it definitely impacts the way you think and the way you act. Somebody is listening, and you know who he is, but I'll just say, he said, tell him Gino is listening, and ask Malik about mentorship relationship. He said he wrote a whole chapter about me in his book, to his surprise. And just as you were, mentored, you then in turn mentored this particular young man. And I always like those scenes when, who brother don't know nothing, but think he know everything, meets a brother who's just trying to hip him to the real game. He's listening. So just talk about a little bit about your relationship with Asani and what you did for him. Because he says, Gino, I wouldn't be this way if it wasn't for Malik.
Well, Gino, his name is Asani Shakur. He changed his name to Asani Shakur, but most people in the streets know him as Gino. He's from Richmond. And when I met him, he was a young guy, pretty rough around the edges. I think at the time when I met him, I don't remember if he had dreads, but he had the tattoos all over his arms. And, he was Richmond is a rough place. And he came from one of the roughest parts of Richmond. And when I met him, he kind of wore that. He had that on his countenance. He had that on his face, and he had that in his aura to a certain extent. So as I started to get to know him, I started to see how sharp he was. He was a young guy. I started to see how intellectual he was and how sharp he was. So we would start to walk around. Every prison has a track, typically inside, right in the middle of the prison. So we would start to walk and talk, and we would walk for a couple of hours, and I started to listen to him. because I felt that he really spoke to the ethos or the sentiments of the youth in the community, whether it is Richmond or South Central Los Angeles or East St. Louis. And I would listen to him. And over time, he started to shed some of that roughness. Over time, I started to introduce him to certain books. So over time, I would introduce him to certain books, and he would read them, and we would discuss them as we walked the track. And then he started to take different classes in the prison. And then we spent 2 years together. And when those 2 years were up, he was, to me, he seemed like a seasoned philosopher. And a lot of times when we think about philosophers, not me, but a lot of people, they visualize some sort of European philosopher. They visualize Socrates or Plato. But to me, we have young philosophers in Bayview Hunters Point. We have them in North Richmond, in East Oakland. We have young philosophers in on the east side of Detroit. So after 2 years, you know, he got out of prison. I had been in prison close to 12 years at that time. And he had, and I don't want to take any credit for it. He always gives me credit, but I don't want to take any credit for it. But he got out. He went to Sacramento City College. He ate for 2 years. He aced it, got straight A's. He got accepted into, as you know, he got accepted into UCLA. He went to UCLA for 2 years and graduated summa cum laude, which means top, you know, with the highest honors in the top of the class. When he left UCLA, graduating summa cum laude, he wound up getting his master's degree from Cal State East Bay. After that, he wound up getting his real estate license. And he just recently applied for another program. He was going to pursue his PhD. And we had several in-depth discussions on should he get his PhD or should he get an LMFT. And so right now, he's in the process of deciding if he's going to enter into a doctorate program or get an LMFT. So that's just a small example of how beneficial a mentor-mentee relationship can be. And I believe, you know, there's a proverb that says, when the student is ready, the master will teach. So when we met, obviously he was ready to receive what little bit of information I had, but I feel blessed to be able to share with the young brother because there were older guys that had shared their experiences with me, as well as I'm always inspired by the ancestors anyway. So, you know, Brother Malcolm, when I speak to him every morning at 5:30, he makes sure that I reach another young brother. Every morning at 5:30, Brother Malcolm is going to make sure that I give back. So Gino happens to be one of the young brothers who is, you know, as you can see, the beauty and the brilliance of that we have. You know, this is a young guy, very rough around the edges when I met him. And now, you know, soon he'll be, I mean, he already has his master's and all of these other accolades, but soon he'll be Dr. Frazier. And he's no different than a young man who lives in Liberty City, Miami. He's no different than a young man who lives on the north side of Minneapolis or the south side of Chicago. I believe that it is incumbent upon us as adults, or those of us who consider ourselves to be somewhat enlightened, we have to recognize the beauty and the greatness of the young folks that we encounter. They have, there's a lot of greatness, a lot of intellectual, there's a lot of intellect in our communities. We just have to recognize it, we have to cultivate it, and we have to nurture it. And he's a perfect example. Perfect.
And you have made this your life's work. And let me, before we move on, I gotta say, look, man, look, you saw something in this brother that he didn't see in himself. He didn't see this, you did. And by the same token, his greatness is that he allowed you to show him and allowed you to guide him to his true self. You know, we've heard know thyself. He didn't know himself. He had the mask, he was being somebody he wasn't. And let me just say, Asani and this family has become pretty close. He is, I mean, Asani is he's a sweetheart. Asani is unbelievable. And I just thank you for tapping into, did we lose him? Oh my God, we lost Malik.
He might come back. He might come back.
He gotta come back. He gotta come back. You gotta come back. Cause I was just getting, oh, let's see, what do we do with breaks like this, Mrs. Still? No, we'll get him back. You're muted.
You just continue with the words that you were sharing with him.
Well, yeah,
Asani. Right about Asani.
He's been on the show. He's moving forward. He's doing great work. And this is what Malik is doing is, the more you know, the more you owe. The more you know, the more you owe. And I want to get him back because I want to talk about what he's done since he has been released, his own mentoring program, and the places that.
There he is.
But just listening to that story though, having him write that I want to speak at Stanford one day. Ended up speaking at Stanford today. I want to do this, I want to do that. Well, what's that? What do you say, Lady Still? What you wish we put out in the universe? You got these wonderful sayings that I don't have. Yeah, go ahead. Say what you want, right?
Did you want me to say it? You got it. That's it. It's important.
Glad you're back, sir, because I want you to talk about the work you've done. You dedicate your life to helping this mission of yours, and believe me, you're in simpatico with what we do because I know exactly how you feel the joy from doing that. Talk about what you've been able to do since you've gotten out. That's the most important thing.
Right. Well, since I've gotten out, when I got out of prison, I immediately filed some paperwork to get my own 501c3, which is a nonprofit organization. And the name of it is SIG, which stands for Scholastic Interest Group, which basically is a mentoring program while focused on mentoring at-risk African-American males. So I did that. That's pretty much what I've been doing since I've been out of prison. However, there were some other things that I got involved in. Of course, I wrote the book. I also, as I was building the capacity and the infrastructure for my nonprofit, I started to take kids, groups of young men rather, on all expenses paid college tours. I would take 12 to 14 young men on college tours, all expenses paid, free. We would fly, and I would just take them and let them sit inside of a college classroom. I would take them to let them meet a college professor. So I think that was sort of I believe that's the apex, or that's the height of what I would be considered an accomplishment. And then a couple of times I took some kids back east to Washington, D.C., to Senator Kamala Harris's office. So that's one endeavor. Another endeavor, which I'm involved with right now, is I am the life and wellness coordinator at Juvenile Hall here in San Francisco.
Wow,
so
wonderful.
Monday through Friday, I'm inside of Juvenile Hall, and I'm the life and wellness coordinator there, meaning I physically train the kids. I get to work the kids out because I like to work out. So it's a perfect situation for me because I could use the physical exercise as a way to break down those barriers.
Sure.
And then I can engage them intellectually. Then I can give them the autobiography of Malcolm X once they have them tired from doing push-ups.
Right.
I do that Monday through Friday, and then I also teach a class with a colleague of mine named Laura McDonald. She has a program called the Next Steps Liaison Project, and we teach basically it's emotional literacy class, but it's just a fancy word for life skills. And we teach that every Tuesday in the so-called maximum security unit inside of Juvenile Hall. So I do that every Tuesday, and then Monday through Friday, I'm inside of Juvenile Hall doing exercise with the kids, as well as going in the units, going in the cells a lot of times, having one-on-one conversations with the youth that are inside of Juvenile Hall.
And I know you've been all over. I mean, the Stanford thing, I would see things, you were in Atlanta speaking. You've been all over the place speaking, talking about your story and motivating young people to do their best.
Yeah.
I'd like
Another thing that I like that I'm involved with that is I got nominated about a year ago to this council. It's called the Reentry Council. And
Mm.
the Reentry Council, it is I'm sure you're familiar with it. I get the mayor, London Breed, sits on that council. London Breed, the chief of police, Bill Scott, as well as the district attorney and the public defender, and several other department heads. And one of the things that's unique about me being in that position is it allows someone like me who's been previously incarcerated to have a say in terms of how different policy will be shaped
That's wonderful.
as it relates to receiving our brothers and sisters when they come home from prison. Because I don't remember if there was anybody else that had been previously incarcerated that sat on that body. But by them recruiting me, bringing me on that body, it gives the body a different voice from a person that has a lived experience. So naturally, I know, I have a pretty good idea of what folks need once they come out of those institutions.
Absolutely. 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 Blaisdell, you going to say something?
Yeah, but kind of. Oh, I was going to ask about the curriculum and what led you to that point. And yeah.
Well, the curriculum is just, to me, it's another level, and the curriculum allows people to not only read the book, but to be able to extract and extrapolate very specific lessons from the book, such as, I have different lessons on restorative justice as they tie into my story. Then I have, I know you guys are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Right.
So I talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how it fits into not only my personal narrative, but how it fits into the narrative of everyone. But I tie it in, I tie it into my story. Then I talk about, how to write a personal mission statement for yourself, for your life, a vision statement for your life, how to write different charts and graphs, and how to gauge and monitor your progress towards a goal. And the curriculum, it was specifically written for not necessarily professors, but for teachers to be able to use it to instruct. And you can write different there's different exercises you can do, different essays, different topics that you can write about, as far as essays that tie into personal experiences that I have in the book. The curriculum is pretty comprehensive.
One of the things that we tell the kids, we have a whole lesson that we do on planning, but it's different. What we have a conversation, and we start out by asking them, what's the difference between a dream and a goal? And see, one of the things that they discovered in reading your chapters is you had a plan, and you planned out your plan. I mean, and it was just amazing watching them see how important it was for them to pay attention to how they spend their time. See, that's the other thing that's significant that book points out, is how we spend our time and getting the full use of our time. And then that plan, so that your curriculum sounds like that would be right in alignment with when we say, what's the difference between a dream and a goal? And then we pull out your curriculum. That's something I'd like to look into more for my
The
college.
curriculum is actually a couple of schools. Are you guys familiar with the Branson School over in Marin?
Yes.
There's a school called Branson, which is, it's a school, I think it's like $40,000 a year. It's a school with, the kids there are very, well, I guess, wealthy. But I taught.
It's $40,000 a year, yeah.
So I had an opportunity to teach. I had an opportunity to teach around my book and to teach around the curriculum last year for 6 weeks. I was able to go to Branson, which was, was very, very ironic because, as you know, the school it's very homogeneous. It's, not a lot of minority folks at the school, but it was interesting to me that they would reach out and they, so they can get a different perspective, because the class was an ethics class. So that was a good opportunity for me as well, to learn something a little different about a different culture.
And how do we get your curriculum?
I bring one by, I think I talked to Doc the other day and he said that somebody would be there. I think I'll call Tuesday. I'll drop it off Tuesday. I'll drop off an example that you can look at on
That's
Tuesday.
wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We already planned it out, ladies. So I knew you'd want it. Absolutely. And you're going to write another book. You're beginning another book. And this one will be about what?
It's sort of, well, I guess it would be considered a sequel, but this book I'll focus more on some of the things that I've been able to get done. I'm not necessarily going to say accomplished because I can hear Brother Malcolm now talking about accomplishments and success, brother. Sister Harriet, she accomplished something by taking 19 trips. So, but one of the things, you know, it would be basically the sequel to this book, and it would talk about some of the things that I've been able to do since I've been out of prison, like, you know, some of the work that I do at Juvenile Hall.
Right.
My work with being involved with the reentry council, Juvenile Hall, and several agencies and organizations, as well as universities that I've been able to interface with, and, you know, get them to actually pay me for the knowledge in my brain.
Yes.
I'll talk about a lot more of that, but I'll talk about, you know, some of my experience prior to going to prison, but I'm going to try to focus more on the metamorphosis, after the transformation, and let the record reflect I am still a work in progress. I have not arrived. So, you know, I don't write in a way to make a person think, you know, that I've gotten over or that I've arrived, because I'm a true believer that as long as the multitudes and the masses of the people in my community, if they haven't arrived in the shanty towns of Soweto and the favelas of Brazil and in East St. Louis and in Hunters Point, you know, how can you say that you've arrived and everyone has? We all haven't arrived. So I'm still a work in progress, but the book will be more, like I said, about a lot of the things that I've done since I've gotten out of prison.
Is there still pressure or is it pressure less?
Pardon me?
I said, is it less pressure? Now less pressure.
Well, it's a different kind of pressure. The pressure to reintegrate back into society with the so-called scarlet letter. You know, the pressure of, you know, credit card debt, which I don't necessarily carry debt, but just the different kind of pressures of navigating society, navigating a corporate environment after being, you know, away for such a long period of time. And then, you know, James Baldwin said to be a black in this country is to be constantly in a rage. So being a black man, I'll never not have pressure, you know, so yeah.
Okay.
Brother, you are so right. You are absolutely right. You are absolutely right. Malik, thank you, man. Thank you. It's been great. You know, watching your journey. You're standing in the community, the admiration people have for you. You know, the truth that you speak. And more so not what you say, but what you do, because actions speak louder than words. A lot of people just, as James, okay, since we were James Brown talking loud and saying nothing, the most important thing is what you do and the example that you set. And you know, we had more brothers and people like you who are willing to, I like to say, do right no matter what. Do right no matter what. Be non-negotiable about it. Not be perfect, and none of us are, but willing to lead by example, and we'd be much better off. And just thank you for that. And like Kemba, who was on earlier, you know, continuing to share your life story, your life journey with everyone. And that can be a tough thing to do sometimes, but just like her, you said, you know, that's my mission in life. That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for, to do this. And it just great. It's just wonderful. Looking forward to the next book. Looking forward to your continued success. And it's funny, I got a text from one of the Omegas. What did she say? I just want to leave you with this. Her name is Tanea Reed, and she might not be listening. And she says, I told her you're going to be on the show tonight. She said, hey, Doc, I was just in a meeting with Malik Wade. Powerful brother. I think that says it all.
Thank you, Sister Reed. Thank you,
I
Sister
think
Reed.
that says it all.
I want to say one thing before I go, and I'll make it very brief. That you know, to whoever is listening, a lot of times I think folks, they tend to think that their story should usurp someone else's story.
No.
Our struggle is relative. My story is my story, but what about the young sister who's a single parent? What about the cancer survivor? What about the sister that survived breast cancer? So our stories, your story doesn't necessarily usurp mine. I'm just a humble messenger, and that's not a disingenuous display of it's just me just saying some words that don't mean anything. I'm just a humble messenger. And, you know, I'm here to share my life story, to share whatever lessons I have. If I can help an individual, I will, whether I like them or not. I may not like their energy, but if I can help you, brother, I'll help you, you know, if I can. But, you know, let's just each one teach one. Somebody find a young Asani, find a young brother, find a young sister that you can mentor. Just teach one. Teach one and you've done a good thing. That's all. Teach one and you've done a good thing. That's my quote. Teach one person.
One, and you save many, believe me, because one person can do a lot of damage. We know that. Thank you, Malik. Lady Estelle, you got any final words?
I want to say that your story is, and Kemba's story, those stories that are told and those stories have yet to be told are like beacon lights. And it empowers, strengthens, and encourages others not only to tell their story, but keep living through and beyond their story so they have another story to tell, another life to save. So I appreciate what you said. I appreciate the work that you do. And I'm looking forward to the book.
And like Kemba, continued growth.
Keep it up.
Continued growth. And that's
that
you can get. Continue to grow. Continue to grow.
And on that note, I say, be ye steadfast. BEYE steadfast.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, everybody.
All right.
Good night, Live and Free family. Good night, Street Soldier family. Thank our wonderful guests, Kemba Smith and Malik Wade. And yeah, you heard it tonight. You don't think knowledge is power? Hey, you just heard it right now. You just heard it tonight. Okay, good night, everybody. See you next week right here. Alive and Free Street Soldiers on Zoom.